Is that against the law to
have sex with a 13-year-old girl when you're 44? Yes, it's against the law.
Yes, that's against the law. If you weren't aware, you can't do that. Hello, friends. Here we are. Another episode of I Need Friends, a podcast about whatever. I still don't have intro music. I still don't have an intro to my podcast, and that's okay. That can be my intro. No, I wouldn't do that to you. Anyway, if you're wondering what you were just listening to at the beginning of this episode, that was Jeff Sokol, who is a weird individual, kind of disgusting. We'll be getting into him and a couple other guys because today we're going to be talking about Hansen versus Predator. And this is very similar to Catch a Predator, which I did an episode on that you can go listen to if you're not familiar with the show, because Hansen versus Predator is the exact same thing as To Catch a Predator. The only thing that's different is it's with a different production company. It wasn't even on a TV channel. It was made for YouTube, I think for Crime Watch Daily, I think is what hosted Hansen versus Predator. And then instead of working with Perverted Justice, who they worked with for To Catch a Predator on Dateline NBC, now they're doing Tetrad Core is the name of the group. So those are the people who are actually doing all the work, because Chris Hansen does dick all. He doesn't do anything. Like, they hand him the chat log and then he goes out there as he's browsing through it. So there's other people that are online that are actually having chats with all these people, trying to get them to come over, having phone conversations with them. So it's just, he doesn't do anything. But To Catch a Predator got canceled way back, in 2007. I talked about that in my last episode, or, the To Catch a Predator episode. So I'm not going to get into that now, but finally, Chris Hansen made it back on top of the predatory food chain, and he could finally start taking down child predators again. And this time, he even got to have his name in the show, which I'm sure that he loved. I think there's a warrant out for his arrest right now for check fraud or something. Just check that out. That's not what this is about, but this guy, Chris Hansen, I could do just a whole episode just on him and the stuff that he's gotten into. But we're not talking about that. We're talking about these 3 particular predators that were on Hansen versus Predator that are just fucking bizarre. Beyond the creepy shit, of course, right? Because they're trying to molest children. So that's already pretty weird. But beyond that, the behavior of these individuals is just so I don't know. I found all these videos on YouTube back when I was dealing with my bouts of insomnia and was watching To Catch a Predator and Hansen versus Predator incessantly. A YouTuber had put together these immersion pack videos that are 3 hours long. So they play the whole uncut interview with Chris Hansen, their uncut police interrogation back at the station. And then before that, they have someone reading out the chat logs. They have recordings of the phone calls if they're there. So you can just find out everything that is possibly available regarding this instance you can find. So I just did a fucking deep dive into these people, because I'm just what the fuck is going on? So let me just get into it without any further ado. First, the guy that we're going to talk about, because we're saving Jeff Sokol for the last. And if you stick around, I don't know why I said it like that, for the last, for last. So, if you're familiar with Jeff Sokol already, you're going to be excited about getting into it. We're saving him for last. Right now, we're going to talk about Jesse Velez. So Jesse Velez, he is in his 30s. He showed up to try to meet a 13-year-old boy wearing these bright orange shorts and a Jurassic Park t-shirt. So he comes to the door and the decoy like opens it up for him, and he's supposed to be a 13-year-old boy. He looks like a ripped 19-year-old. Like what were they thinking? Just obviously this is not a child. So, Jesse's like acting like kind of weird, and he's feeling awkward anyway, which I mean he should be. He's there to take advantage of and molest a child, so like he should feel weird. And he starts asking him like he asked him if he has his ID. He's like, this is going to be a weird question, but do you have your ID? And he's like, no, my mommy keeps that in her purse. Like, what? And then he's all like, who lives here? And he's like, me, my mommy, and my daddy. Just not, do you know a 13-year-old that talks that way? Like, I don't know, just not buying it at all. This whole interaction is like super awkward. He asks him if he wants any water. So he goes into the fridge and like goes to get a bottle of water. And you look in the fridge, it's like empty as fuck. Like, put in some effort, you guys. Like, what are you doing? You look like through the doorways and there's like black curtains, like just hanging in the doorways, like blocking what you could see in the other rooms. Like, this guy should have realized, like, as soon as he came in there, and he's already being like wary, like, who lives here? Do you have your ID? Like, are you really 13 because you look like you're fucking 25? Like, you have fucking biceps, like, bigger than my arm. So what's going on here? And so he should have just gotten out of there. Like, it's so fucking obvious that something's happening there. And then, so of course, Chris Hansen comes out and he's all like, oh my God, like, what's happening? And he just says that he was here to hang out and not do anything and just make friends. And he's like, well, then why'd you send him a picture of your private parts? And he goes, ew, I did? I didn't even know that I sent that. Like, yeah, okay, sure. You didn't know that you sent that picture. So, because there is so much on YouTube about To Catch a Predator and Hansen versus Predator, like, people make parody videos. Like, there's this guy that does these defending videos where he's like fake defending these predators and like pretending to believe their lies. It's obvious, but it's really funny. But he does one where he's trying to cover how Jesse Velez could have accidentally sent a picture of his dick to a kid, and he's British, so he's like he like goes into his bathroom. He's like, oh, I'm just taking a pee, holding my phone, taking a pee. Oh no, I dropped my phone. And it's like, like makes the camera noise. And he's like, oh, and it took a picture of me privates. I hope it doesn't send a picture to some random 13-year-old on Grindr. And then you hear his Alexa go, okay, sending a picture of your private parts to a random person on Grindr. He's like, oh, I didn't mean to do that. I hope I don't accidentally ask him to hang out now. And then his Alexa goes, okay, asking the random 13-year-old boy if he wants to hang out. He's like, oh, bollocks. Best I better go over there and teach him the dangers of the internet. I'm terribly sorry about that awful accent, but I just really wanted to like bring it in for you and really let you live my experience. Like, how do you accidentally send a picture of your dick and not realize it? And then you're like, wait, he's on Grindr? He was on fucking Grindr? Like, Chris Hansen just out of nowhere, as he's reading the chat log, says to him, he's like, so what is Grindr for? And and the dude's like, I know. Some people think that Grindr's for hookups, but that's not me. I wasn't there to do anything sexual to that nature. Nothing sexual to that nature. Just here to hang out. I don't do drugs. I have friends that are 16, 30, and we just hang out. Like, we don't do drugs, and I never come over to someone's house. Like, actually, thank you, because you've taught me a lesson today to not just walk up in someone's house that you don't know. Like, don't do to someone else what you wouldn't want them doing to you, and I don't want people coming into my house, so I shouldn't come into someone else's house. The fuck? Chris Hansen's like, that's the lesson you got from today? And so then he thinks that he gets to just leave and everything's fine. And of course it's not. He gets arrested as he's leaving. And it's just like, what? Like, you meeting this kid on Grindr. And so I went back and looked at the chat log, and it's so obvious that he's trying to be like, he's asking him if he's top or bottom, asking how big he is. He's asking him for nudes. Like, there's hardly anything about hanging out or trying to get to know this person or be friends. And it's like, it's appalling that these people they see Chris Hansen holding the printout of the whole chat in their hands, and they still try to lie. Like, you asked this kid for nudes, you asked him how big he was, you asked him top or bottom, and you sent him a picture of your dick. Like, all of those things just not working out in your favor. Unfortunately, this dude only went to jail for like 2 years. Yeah, he served for 2 years. So he got out in April of 2018. And, oh, shit, I forgot I did so much research on this guy. Look at me. Oh, yeah. So when I was looking in the chat log, sorry, I'm looking at my notes that I took to kind of keep me on track here. And I'm seeing some things I wrote down that are just like golden. Like him asking to pick this kid up from middle school. He's like, oh, I'm in middle school. And he's like, that's okay. I'll come pick you up. Like, ew, gross, dude. Like, come on. And you only went to jail for 2 years? I don't think that jail, like, really helps with this kind of stuff, but that's a separate discussion. But he also this guy, he had a boyfriend at the time. So he makes, like, this Facebook post, like, trying to apologize and explain himself and say that he was misrepresented and he's not like that. Saying sorry to his boyfriend. Like, how embarrassing for his boyfriend. I'm sorry, dude. Sorry you had to deal with that. But he got arrested again in 2019 for a probation violation. And then again in 2020 for breach of peace. I don't know what he's up to now, but he's hopefully not messaging little boys on Grindr, because that's not okay. All right, enough of Jesse and his orange shorts and Jurassic Park t-shirt and accidental dick pics. We're going to move on to mega creep. I don't even know. Like, I can't even decide which of these three is the creepiest. You'll have to let me know. But this guy, his name is Josh Cologne. He's 32. And as soon as he walks in to meet this decoy, he fucking locks the door. And, like, I went back and checked, like, a bunch of other videos, and that hardly ever happens. I don't think that it has. I can't say certainly that it hasn't, but I haven't seen anyone where it happens. Like, they just come in and this guy like locks the door behind him and you're already kind of creeped out, especially because if you've looked at his chat log before you watch the video, you see how he's trying to like boss this little girl around. Like, it's really disgusting. Like, he's saying stuff to her about like her making him dinner when he shows up and she's going to do whatever because he's the boss, and then gets into all these details about specific things he wants her to do that I don't want to repeat because he's the boss. And like he wants her to call him Poppy. So like when the decoy opens the door, she's like, "Hi, Poppy." Like, and then he comes in and locks the door. She's like, "Oh, and he's got this bag of something. And a lot of the times the predators will bring something for the decoy. And one of the reasons that they do this is so that they can say that you came for all the reasons you said you did. You were talking about how you wanted to have sex with this girl and you were going to show up to have sex. Well, you showed up to have sex, but she also asked for like, a candy bar and chips, and you brought her those things too. So like, obviously you were here to do all the things you said you were going to do. So that's why they do stuff like that. I don't know if she had asked for anything, but they definitely talked about like dinner and stuff and cooking in the chat logs. So he's got like this bag of food and she goes, "Oh, what'd you bring me?" And he's like, "Oh, that's dinner for me. I didn't bring you anything." Like, dude, you're a fucking dick. Like, you're here to take advantage of this girl and you're not even going to feed her? Come on. Just, it makes it even, like, it's bad enough. And then it makes it even worse because it's just so like, these guys don't actually care about these girls. But it just kind of like, it fully reinforces that. Like, this is just all about you and you fulfilling your sick, twisted, like, blah. So he's like, "Can I use the bathroom? I've been in the car for a really long time." Oh no. And he also tells this girl that like, she's hotter than her pictures. Blech. So he goes to use the bathroom. And he can't find the light switch. So while he goes into the bathroom, the decoy leaves and Chris Hansen comes out. Like, you see her being like, oh, we switching? You gonna do a little switcheroo? Switchy? You come here, I come there? So he sticks his head out of the bathroom to try to find the light switch, and Chris Hansen's standing there. And he's got this big ass grin on his face when he opens the door because he's all excited to finally be with this child. And as soon as he sees Chris Hansen, his face just like falls. And he goes, oh shit. Like, and then you find out he knows exactly who Chris Hansen is, exactly what's going on. He sits down at the table, and then he has like his car keys in his back pocket. So his alarm starts going off and he has to hand his keys to Chris Hansen to turn the alarm. It's just this whole awkward thing. And he kind of just starts telling him exactly what was going on. And you're like, dude, shut up. I mean, obviously you want him to face the consequences and not get away with this, but you're also kind of like, what are you doing? Like, you're not even trying. Like, can you imagine like when this guy had to lawyer up and he's just finding out that he's spilled everything? He's like, what am I supposed to do for you now? Like, you told all of these people, Chris Hansen, the police officers, you told all of them exactly what you had planned to do. And then he even volunteered information, which we'll get to that in a little bit. But as he's talking with Chris Hansen at the table and Chris Hansen's going through the chat log, you find out that he thought this girl was 12 years old. It's just so nasty. And this chat log was just so disgusting. And it gets very detailed. And like I said, I just don't want to repeat some of it because it's just like, it's one thing to read it, especially because as it's in whoa, what happened there? When you're watching the videos of the people reading the chat log, it's adults reading them. So it's not as weird, even though you know it's supposed to be a kid. And also the person that they're talking to isn't actually a kid. So I think if these were real chats with a real child on the other end, I don't think I'd be able to stomach them. But just knowing that makes it like a little bit easier to digest, I guess, because it's gross the way that they talk to some of these people. So Chris Hansen is going on and on reading about the chat log, and Josh Cologne is not even trying to deny any of it. He's like, yeah, I know, I was wrong, I messed up. And he says, then Chris Hansen goes, so you have a twin brother, is that right? What? Dude, you have a twin brother? What are you doing? This guy fucking hates you. Hates you, guaranteed. Like, you've just ruined your brother's life. I mean, this guy has a pretty distinct look. I feel like if I saw him out, like, down the street, I'd be like, that's fucking Josh Cologne, that child predator that likes 12-year-olds. And he'd be like, no, that's my twin brother. It's not me, I swear. You'd be like, oh, the old twin brother trick. No, really, he's got a fucking twin brother. So he has to leave. Hansen's like, it's time for you to go. Josh is familiar with the show. He knows what's about to happen. And then he goes, can I use the bathroom first? I've been holding it for a long time. Chris Hansen just looks at him and goes, I think you should go. It doesn't even let this guy use the bathroom. And then they're showing clips of him when he's like at the police station is being processed and everything. And it seems like, I'm not sure, but it seems like still a significant amount of time passed before this guy was finally able to take a piss. It's so funny. I mean, can you imagine like dealing with something like you're facing the fact that like your life is basically falling apart and you're feeling hopefully the most ashamed that you've ever felt in your life. I hope that this person is feeling shame. And on top of that, you're trying to hold in this piss that you've been holding in for hours. Oh, you love to see it. But that guy spent 3 years in jail, a little more time. Actually, I don't think he sent any explicit images. So I wonder like what the difference was there between Jesse Velez, who was not quite as explicit with the words and they didn't have like a very long conversation. But he actually did send a picture of his genitals. Meanwhile, you have this guy who it was more of like a verbal thing and trying to exhibit some control. Looks like he got more time. Also, as I mentioned earlier, he didn't make it very easy for his lawyer to help him. He confessed, just spilled it all right out. So, and what was especially gross about this guy is that he said that he prefers younger girls because of the feeling of power. It makes him feel powerful. That's really gross. That's really disgusting. And now we're on to Jeff Sokol. So you guys can let me know after you hear about Jeff which one you think was the grossest and creepiest, because I really can't decide. I want to say it's Jeff, but when I look into some of the other dudes, I'm like, I don't know. Maybe they're all pretty fucked, but whew, this guy is a doozy. So let's get into it. Oh God, what a fucking creep. At least the other guys seemed ashamed of what they did. The most appalling thing about Jeff Sokol was his utter lack of shame, remorse, or even like understanding of what was. I mean, he understands. It's like he was playing dumb. It's like intentionally being obtuse, and you're like, no one's buying this dude. So anyway, Jeff Sokol is 44 and was coming to meet a 13-year-old. And this is like, honestly, this is so much worse than I can even convey. If you have 17 minutes to go watch the clip of him showing up and then talking with Chris Hansen, you should watch that. You could just look up Jeff Sokol Uncut on YouTube. And it's just so, like, he comes in and he's so fucking casual. He's just really relaxed. He's happy to be there. He's kind of starting this really like kind of casual conversation. Like, how was your day? What have you been up to? I got this pizza, because there's this whole thing about him picking up a pizza and like the small was just as big as the large. So I got this. And like, you're like, okay, why are we talking so much about the pizza? He's like taking off his jacket, washing his hands, like just smiling, chit-chatting, like it's just so normal for him to show up at some 13-year-old's house when her parents aren't there. You fucking creep. So they do some of the casual chit-chat, and then the girl says, so are we going to talk about this contract? Because I just want to get that out of the way. You're like, what contract? And Jeff kind of like pauses for a minute, like looks down and sighs, and then just goes, let's eat first. We'll talk after we eat. So you don't really find out what the contract was about until Chris Hansen comes in. And even then, like, I had to look at the chat log to really see what exactly it was he was talking about. So they're getting ready to eat. Jeff Sokol's like ready. He's like, let's get into this. Are we going to sit at the table? You want to eat here? And like, the decoy's not going to eat anyway. She doesn't have a fucking appetite right now. You disgusting creep. She doesn't want to eat in front of you. She just wants to get away. So she's like, oh, I don't know. Like, we're just casual, whatever. So he sits down and just starts like, he's getting ready to eat like right out of the pizza box. Well, you hear this noise and she's like, oh, what's that? I'll go check it out. And then Chris Hansen comes out and he goes, oh, how's it going? And Jeff Sokol goes, who's this? Who's this? You're in someone else's house. Like, who are you? And he's like, oh, I want to know who you are. And he's like, well, I want you to tell me who you are first. Like, no, that's not how this works. You don't show up in someone's house that you don't know, and then when a grown man enters the room, you go, who are you? Maybe he's the owner of the house. He's not. It's Chris Hansen. But, I mean, he even asked, like, oh, are you her dad? You her dad? Like, why are you giving her attitude like this? If you're trying to marry this 13-year-old, why are you lipping her dad? Like, yes, he was talking about marrying her, because they get into the chat log, they start talking about the contract. And of course, this 44-year-old man is very aware that what he's doing is wrong and illegal. So he's trying to like find out ways to like make it legal. And in this chat, he's like grooming this girl basically about like, what would happen if they got in trouble and what they could do to make it legal so that people wouldn't like judge them. And if they went out, people would stare and wonder why they were together. Like, ooh, just all this weird stuff. And even like the mundane parts of their conversation, which there was actually more chit chat in these chat logs than there are in other ones, which it's weird because when there is no chit chat, like casual, like conversation in the chat logs with the predator and the decoy, it's gross in that way because, it's obvious they really just don't care about this kid at all or anything that they're doing. Like I read one where this girl brought up like that her parents were getting a divorce and the predator just like skipped right past it. Like, oh, anyway, you have any pictures? Like just really gross. But then there was like too much casual chit chat, which like made it even weirder. Like they're talking about donuts, like their favorite place to get donuts. And then like they start talking about sports. Like he says something about how he's a Patriots fan and she's like, oh, they cheat and, they use deflated balls and stuff like that. And he kind of gets mad at her. He's like, Bailey, you're better than that. Like, don't be a hater. What the fuck? You're getting onto a 13-year-old for not liking your sports team. Like, get over yourself. And then she says hot wings. And he's like, oh my God, I hate when people call them hot wings. They're buffalo wings because they're from Buffalo. Like, dude, get it together. So it just made it like I said, these people are just fucking bizarre, like on top of their already really creepy shit. Just like what? Like you're arguing about like where's the best place to get donuts and buffalo wings and hot wings with like this 13-year-old that you're trying to marry? Like what are you even doing? Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot to mention this part. Oh, dude. So he sits down when he's getting ready to eat this pizza. He pulls a pill bottle out of his pocket and he's like, this isn't medicine or anything. This is just something I have to take before I eat. And like, you're kind of wondering, like, what is that? Is that Viagra? Like, what are you doing? And of course, you find out later that it was Cialis. He tried to say that it wasn't, but he had a bottle of Cialis with him. So you tell me. I think it's pretty obvious. But yeah, like right in front of this little girl, like, oh, this is just something that I take. I mean, she's actually 19. It wasn't a real little girl, but he thinks it's a little girl. So, of course, like when Chris Hansen came out, he gave him the whole like classic, like hanging out line. We're just hanging out. Like, oh, with who? With her. It's normal. I'm like almost 50 and I'm here to see a child. I don't see what issue you have with that. And so he's like, what is that? Is that like illegal? And Chris Hansen's like, well, after this chat, yeah, like hell yeah, it's illegal now. And Jeff has like this dumbass look on his face that he's like forcing, like, huh? You know how Tucker Carlson from Fox News, you know how he looks all the time when he's doing his show? Like that's the face that Jeff Sokol was making. Just like, you have to be so flabbergasted at everything because these people suggesting that what you're doing is illegal is so absurd. Like, how could they possibly think that this is illegal? Like, you just wanted to come hang out, just see what she was like. And Chris Hansen's like, so you think like you were going to marry her if you liked her? He's like, well, maybe, like not right away. What? Like, he's like, not in like 2 weeks. Just trying to justify how it could possibly be okay for him to groom a child to marry him. And like, you're making these arguments to the wrong fucking people. Like, don't make this argument to Chris Hansen and don't make this same fucking argument to a police officer when you're back at the police station. He was going back and forth with this officer for like an hour. And like, this police officer was like losing his mind because he's like, dude, what you did is fucked. Can you stop trying to act like this shit wasn't totally fucked? Like, he's just like, no, we're just gonna hang out. I don't see the big deal. I don't see the big deal of hanging out. And this guy, okay, so he fucking went through 3 lawyers. And I'm pretty sure like the first 2 were just like, either they felt like they couldn't do anything for him because the stuff he was saying was just so ridiculous, or they didn't even want to deal with him. I'm hoping that it was the latter because gross. But the guy who ended up defending him, like I read about some of the arguments that the lawyer was making, and he was saying stuff like, oh, 100 years ago, this wasn't illegal. Oh my God. Really pulling that one out. And then tries to make the argument that he's like a nice guy that wouldn't have intended anything because he's nice to his parents. What the fuck does that have to do with what you're going to do with a kid? I mean, obviously, like, that didn't help him at all because he actually got sentenced for 7 years, but he only had like a mandatory 30 months, and which really isn't that long. And I just can't believe I'm still like processing the fact, like just going back at my notes again and seeing that this lawyer made this fucking argument 100 years ago. This wasn't a crime. What in the fuck? Like, someone seriously made that argument. But let me talk a little bit more about about this conversation that Jeff Sokol had with Chris Hansen, because it's so weird. It's like when he comes out, he already has the pizza box open and he's trying to ask him these questions. He's like, "What are you doing here?" And Jeff goes, "Can I eat first?" And Chris Hansen's like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess if you want to eat, like, sure." So he's really just like shoveling this pizza, this greasy, cheesy, like delicious looking. My mouth is watering, like thinking about this pizza. It stole the show. It was from Planet Pizza. The people that love this show now love Planet Pizza. We all want it. If I'm ever in Fairfield, Connecticut, I'm going to go to Planet Pizza. This pizza looked amazing. I mean, and the small is almost as big as the large, so you can't really go wrong. No, he's sitting there just shoving this pizza in his mouth, like talking like with food. He's like, "I don't know the big deal. Yeah, so what? I came here." Chris Hansen's like, "You drove 2.5 hours to hang out with a 13-year-old? Sure did." Just chomping down on that pizza. He even asks Chris Hansen if he wants some. He offers them to him. Not even once. He does it on his way out. So he starts to realize, like, everything that's happening. Like, it's pretty clear. Like, he thinks Chris Hansen is law enforcement, but he just knows that, like, he's about to get in trouble. This person has his chat log and can look through his conversations and is challenging everything he's saying. Like, so, like, there's not really much you can do at that point. Because, like, as soon as he says what his name is, as soon as he's like, "Well, I'm Chris Hansen," that's when the other cameras come out. So now they know they're being filmed. Like, they didn't realize they've actually been filmed the whole time, but now they're being filmed. And he's like, "Well, I don't want the cameras in here." And so, like, he knows what's going to happen when he leaves. And he's like almost trying to not leave. And Chris Hansen's just like, I think you should go. Because they were sitting there talking for so long. Like, Jeff is trying to justify his actions to Chris Hansen for so fucking long. Like, he even says to him at one point, he's like, "I mean, what do I look like? Do I look like a disgusting, dirty person to you?" Yes. Yes, you do. You actually do, in fact, look like a child predator. If I saw you, I would probably stand in between you and my daughter, so you would get as little visibility of her as possible. Because you just look gross. And after reading your chat log, like, yeah, you're a disgusting, dirty person. And Chris Hansen has the chat log in his hands too. So everyone here knows that, yes, indeed, you are in fact a disgusting, dirty person. Like, oh, you just want to hang out and see how she was? Just see how a 13-year-old was? Maybe you'd want to marry her in a few years if her mom lets her. Ew, just talking about it like it's just such a normal fucking thing to do. So then as he's finally leaving, as he finally gets up, because there's just really nothing else he can do, Chris Hansen's just staring at him. He's got all these cameras on him. And so he goes to get up, and Chris goes, "You can take your pizza if you'd like." And Jeff's like, "Do you want a slice?" Like, offers him pizza again. Like, what? I don't think he took it. I don't think he got the pizza, though. But what the triple fuck, Jeff? You're going to offer this guy pizza and just sit there and eat it like it's so fucking normal. He's probably just trying to do anything he could to distract from the fact that, like, he'd just taken this Cialis and he was about to get, like, a raging boner that he's going to have to try to conceal while he's trying to say that he wasn't going to do this stuff with this girl that he was definitely going to do. Wow. So I think, like, I'm glad I only picked 3 guys, because I think that's probably all we could all we could handle deep diving into this. It's just so so weird, so gross. You've got to check these videos out on YouTube, these Hansen versus Predator videos. I think they might even be better than the To Catch a Predator, just because of the behavior of the people alone. I don't know. It's so weird and gross, but then there's just something so entertaining about it. You just want to keep watching and see these people that got duped by a group of adults. You weren't actually chatting with a child. You were chatting with a group of adults who were setting you up. Like, that's kind of funny to me. I kind of like that. I like when child predators don't actually get to molest children. That's preferable for that to not happen. So, anyway, tell me what you think. Share your thoughts with me. I haven't gotten an email in a while. I've been getting some Instagram messages, but nothing on my email. So you can send me an email to ineedfriendspod@gmail.com. If you want to find me on Instagram, that's ineedfriends_pod. And then I'm also on Twitter at @aladyhuman. So you can find me there as well. And then I got a website up now for some gear. I Need Friends gear. You don't even need to be a fan of the show to find something you like on there. It's ineedfriendspod.com. So you can check that out too. Or don't. Do whatever you want with your life, because I'm not living it. You are. And hopefully you're not talking to little children on the internet. And if you are, then stop. Probably wouldn't have been listening to this episode if you were doing that, I would imagine. I hope not. If you're a child predator, please do not listen to my show. I don't want you. That should be clear, right? Anyway, I should stop talking now. Clearly, it's time for me to go. So that's going to do it for today. And we'll see what we have in store for you next time. Till then, bye, friends.